The number one thing I disliked about this film was the fact that it was a musical. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Emilia Perez, and today we're doing something very exciting that I'm very excited for. And if you're a film and TV buff, I think you'll also enjoy, because I decided to start a new series here on my YouTube channel where I'm going to be watching and reviewing all of the Oscars 2025 nominees. So every week I'm going to be dropping a new review on one of the films, and by the end of the series I'm going to share my thoughts on which films I think should have won in each category. So a little background before we start. As some of you guys know, I moved to California at 18 to pursue an acting career, and I landed a role on a show on BET called Games People Play. I booked a few other stuff, but I've always loved film and TV and stories. This has just always been part of me. So I've been thinking about putting a little series like this together for a while where I can share my love for stories with you guys and share my opinion, but also hear you guys' back. So I'm very excited about this. A little fun fact, and I would love to know your opinion on this, but me personally, I love films over TV. And the reason for that is because I feel like with a film, you go through this journey, like this magical journey, you enter this new world, and then there's an end. There's like closure, you know? And that's what I like, versus I feel like in a TV show, you watch so much of it that it doesn't feel as magical anymore. Even though the stories are good, but I feel like with a film, it just feels different. There's a magic with it. And even in the films that don't give you that closure that I was mentioning, I still feel like you get like okay, this is the end. Now you leave and you know, you go back to real life. Versus I feel like with a TV show, it just becomes part of your life, if that makes sense. I don't know how to explain it, but I just prefer films. So I'm curious to know, do you guys prefer films or TV shows? Let me know in the comments. So without further ado, the first film we're going to be reviewing in today's video is Emilia Perez. Emilia Perez is a film about a cartel leader who dreams about becoming a woman. So he hires a lawyer to help him fake his death and go through the transition of becoming a woman. The film is a musical, and it has been nominated for a lot of awards and also won a few. Some that some people did not think it deserved. For example, Best Supporting Actress that went to Zoe Saldana at the Oscars, and the other for Best Song also at the Oscars for the song El Mal. And bro, there is so much controversy around this film, and it has received so much hate. But honestly, after watching it, I don't think it was that bad. But before we get into that, I just have to share a little disclaimer. This video is going to contain some spoilers. So if you haven't seen the film, go watch it. It's on Netflix. Pause this video and then come back. We'll be right here waiting for you. But I prefer you to watch the film first, so that way you can join in on the banter and share your opinion with us. I also want to introduce you guys to this video's sponsor, ColonBroom. ColonBroom is my little reset button for those days or even weeks sometimes when I've just been making a lot of bad decisions. Maybe I've been eating a little bit too much pizza and ice cream, haven't been working out, and I start to feel like absolute crap. I start to feel lethargic, I start to feel bloated, my energy levels start to go down, my skin starts to break out because of all the toxic stuff I'm putting into my body. ColonBroom is pretty much my cheat code to getting back on track fast, because it helps to flush out all the toxic stuff and junk that's just been sitting in my system. I take 2 scoops with 12 ounces of water, and literally like clockwork, within 30 minutes to an hour, I'm running to the bathroom. And afterwards, I feel so much lighter, my energy levels are balanced, and I feel like I can get myself regulated again without feeling like I'm starting from square one. I also love it because it helps to nourish my gut and helps me feel full longer, which is gonna help me combat those cravings that are gonna lead to that bad cycle, because it contains active fibers like psyllium husk, which is going to be especially helpful when you are dealing with constipation. So if you are a person who struggles with regular bowel movements, or maybe you just want a reset button like me, I think you are going to love ColonBroom. And right now they're having their spring sale where you can get 65% off your order. And I also have a coupon that can get you an additional 10% off the 65%. So you get 75% off your first ColonBroom order. So if you use the code ISMELI10 at checkout, it'll automatically apply the discount, or there's also going to be a link in the description of this video that's going to automatically apply the 65 plus the 10% on there. So if ColonBroom sounds like something you need, pause this video right now and place that order before you forget, and take advantage of the sale. I'll be waiting for you right here. Now, let's get back to Emilia Perez. So first of all, there's a lot about the film I didn't like, but there's also a lot of stuff about the film that I did like that I haven't really heard other people talking about. So I want to start off with the things about the film that I did like, and then we'll talk about the things that I didn't like. Cool? All right. So number one, the concept. Personally, I love the concept. I know it's controversial, especially because the film takes place in a country like Mexico, which is a very conservative and traditional country. Now, bringing in the idea that a cartel leader wants to be transgender, it can be a lot for some people. But I personally thought that the idea was so interesting because you don't think about that. For those of you guys that don't know, I went to film school for about a year, and I took writing classes when I was in film school. And one of my writing teachers, he told us, like, when you're writing a script, start off with the what if. What if this happened? Like, just random things that have never happened in the world, and start a script from that. And some amazing things will come from it. And I think this is one of those where it's like, well, what if a cartel leader wanted to be a transgender? Because the two worlds just don't collide usually, or people don't think they collide. So I thought that the concept of the script was so interesting. So I know a lot of other people were not a fan, but I love that. And I think there's so much potential in that script, in this concept, that honestly I don't think the makers of this film really took advantage of. And I'm going to get more into that in a little bit. Now, let's talk about the acting, because this was also another controversial topic. But me personally, I thought the acting was really good. The main actress, the one that plays the transgender ex-cartel leader, Carla Sofia Gaston, I think she did a phenomenal job showing all the different emotions and just portraying the character. Her acting was believable. The delivery was great. I think she did an amazing job. And I don't know if you guys know this, but she also played Manitas, which when we first watched the film, I was like, wait, was that her? And then I looked it up. I was like, oh shit, that's her. Like, that she played Manitas, and she played, obviously, Emilia. One thing though I will mention about her acting is that she, for those of you guys that don't know, she is a Spanish actress. Like, she's from Spain, right? And a Spain accent is very different from a Mexican accent. And I'm not Mexican, so I can't really speak to this, but from other people that are Mexican, I kept hearing that her accent was off. Mexico has a lot of different accents because Mexico is a huge country, just like the United States. So apparently the specific region in Mexico that her character in the movie takes place in, the accent wasn't accurate. Can't speak to that because I'm not Mexican, but that's a comment that I did hear a lot. And people were saying that because she's from Spain, she couldn't get the accent down right. Even though I think they did a pretty good job, because I did hear a good amount of the Mexican accent in there, and I didn't hear any of her Spanish accent, which Spanish is very, you can tell they use a lot of the aprecias, you know, and that wasn't in her dialect in the movie. So I think she did a good job at switching that, in my opinion. But again, people were saying that she just didn't get the specific region's accent down. If you're Mexican, or if you know more of the accent, I would love to hear your opinion in the comments. Now let's talk about Selena Gomez, because her character was very controversial amongst people on the internet. A lot of people were saying, why do they have her playing this character when her Spanish is so terrible? And before I watched the film, I was on the same page. I was seeing clips and I'm like, bro, they really hired her to play a Spanish character. Are you kidding me? This is terrible. Like, a kid would have known better. And then you watch the film. Once you watch the film, you realize that her character is actually an American who moved to Mexico to be with her husband. So she's a transplant. She's not a Mexican native. The film didn't do a good job of giving too much background into who she really is. Like, is her family Mexican descent or whatever? They didn't do too much of that. I wish they did. So we don't really know the full story there, but we just know that for a fact she was an American person who moved to Mexico. So that would explain why her Spanish sounds like a gringa, like a white person trying to speak Spanish. I personally think that her acting was great. I think we all forgot how great of an actress Selena Gomez is. She's been in so much stuff, but she's kind of been in a whole other world for the past few years that we forget that she's actually very good at what she does. And I think she did a great job delivering her lines, showing emotions, showing the different parts of the character. But with that being said, I feel like the script and also the musical numbers did not do her justice. The musical numbers that they gave to her specific character, they just made her sound like something was wrong with her. Like, she was not good up here. That part of it kind of threw me off, and I just couldn't connect to her character. But I feel like there was so much more that we could have connected to her character if the script and the way they made the film had allowed it. But yeah, overall in her acting, I think she did a phenomenal job. It's just the musical part, bro. Oh my god. We're gonna get into the musical parts of it in a second. But before we do, I want to now talk about Zoe Saldana. She won Best Supporting Actress for this role. We all know Zoe Saldana. She's a great actress. I don't think we expected any less of a great performance from her, which she did give in this film. The musical numbers were awkward and weird, and I don't think that was her fault. I think she did the best she could with what she was given. And I think everybody else's performances were phenomenal. They were believable, felt natural. Like I think acting wise, the film was solid. They had good actors on the film. I have no complaints or anything to say about any of the actors in the film, except I do wish they had hired maybe more native Mexican actors to help tell the story in a more authentic way, because at some parts the film did feel like outsiders trying to tell a story that they didn't really understand, if that makes sense. And I'll touch more about that in a second. Now, let's move on to the things that I didn't like about the film. The main thing, the number one thing I disliked about this film was the fact that it was a musical. One, I'm not a huge fan of musicals, to be honest with you. And maybe it's because I haven't seen enough to find ones that I actually like. But the fact that this film was a musical, it threw the whole thing off for me, bro. Like at times when I was getting into it and I was like, oh, okay, we're going somewhere, I was taken out by the freaking musical numbers. And I'm like, what the hell am I watching, bro? Because the musical numbers felt like a parody. I don't know who wrote them, why they wrote them the way they did, but it just felt like a parody and it ruined the film for me. I feel like the film had so much potential, but the fact that it was a musical ruined it. And I'm so upset because, again, I feel like it has so much potential. And I did a little more research to try and understand why they made it this way. So originally the film was what's called a opera libretto, like a musical opera. When you take that into account and you look at the film as a whole, it starts to make sense, because the film really felt like how they do plays. You have act 1, act 2, and act 3, and that's exactly how the film felt. I watched a video where somebody else said that the film felt like an outline, and when you put that idea with the idea of like it was originally a stage play, I think it makes sense as to why it felt like an outline, because it was like, okay, this is act 1, this is what happens in act 1, and then all of a sudden you just like take us out, we're not involved in the story, and then all of a sudden you bring us back in when something else happens, and then you take us out and then you put us back in another place. And I think that took me out of it, and I think it took a lot of people out of it as well. Again, this is a film that is very controversial, and I feel like adding all those other elements into it make it even harder for people to digest it. And I know that shouldn't be the people's problem, because the film is trying to tackle a bigger issue, but I think if you're going to try and convince or try and bring people in to understand that world, you also have to meet them halfway. And I feel like this film tried so hard to make the audiences come all the way into their world instead of trying to meet them halfway, if that makes sense. So I feel like the flow of the film was just off. And that leads me to my next point. I feel like this film should have been a TV show, not a film. I think there's so much going on in this story. And again, there's so much potential, but I think it needs to be developed properly over time. And this is why I think it needs to be a TV show where they show us when he developed his desires to want to be a woman, what his struggles were, when he met Jesse, how they fell in love, why he decided to keep this secret to himself, the kids, Jesse's affair, and etc. etc. I feel like that would have been so much more interesting. That also applies to Zoe's character, the lawyer. I would have wanted to learn more about her backstory, how she got there, why she was working for this freaking asshole of a lawyer guy, her desires and her, I guess, her selling point, because they showed that when Manitas was giving her all this money, she was out there taking first class flights and buying herself nice things, right? So I would have loved to explore that, because what even made her take Manitas up on the offer? Because of money, or was it something else? I would have loved to learn about her background and what led her to make the decisions that she made. We could have connected more with the different characters, and a lot of the stuff the film does tell us, but it tells us. Like there's a scene where Emilia is dying in Jesse's arms at the end of the movie, and he goes into this whole monologue telling her, oh, remember when we met, right? They told us how he always had wanted to be a woman, but they didn't show us. And I think it's so much more impactful when a film shows us. You know, I also almost wish that they didn't kill off Emilia and Jesse. I kind of wish Emilia had told her sooner, and then we would have seen what that dynamic would have turned into. I think that would have made an even more interesting story. But again, I just feel like everything was so rushed. As the audience, I couldn't connect. Every time I was finally like getting deep into the story, I was taken out and moved into something else, and I'm like, wait, I was just finally connecting with the characters. And I think that if they had made it into a TV show, it wouldn't have received so much hate. I think people would have given it a chance, and people would have warmed up to it and started again connecting with the characters. And this show really had potential of becoming a cult classic, in my opinion, or not even a cult classic, just something that a lot of people fell in love with and people would talk about in a positive light. But I think it received all the hate because it felt like an outline, it felt rushed, and people just couldn't connect to it. They couldn't see really the vision. And the film was 2 hours long, a little over 2 hours long. I think they couldn't have made it any longer. I think people would have not watched it, to be honest with you, if it was longer. Again, which is why I think it should have been a TV show, because in a TV show they have more time to develop trust with the audience. But that's just my opinion. I'm curious to know what you guys think. Also, does not help that the director and writer is not even of Mexican descent. They're trying to tell a Mexican story, and it shouldn't be a requirement for you to be of a specific country or culture to write a story about that culture. But with this specific film, I feel like because the director and writer wasn't Mexican or of that culture, he didn't tell the story in the most authentic way. It felt like, the best way I can describe it is, it felt like gentrification. Someone trying to appreciate the culture, but not necessarily understanding it. So to wrap it up, I think overall the film had so much potential, and I don't hate it, like I said, but I think it didn't reach its full potential or even close to its full potential. The musical numbers were freaking terrible. The cinematography was not impressive, but I don't think that you watch this film for the cinematography. You mostly watch it for the concept, which again had so much potential, but they didn't help it reach its full one. I would love for this film to be remade, or please turn it into a TV series and don't kill off Emilia or Jesse just yet. Maybe you could do it later on, but just don't kill them off. Let's see what that story develops into. I think that will make such a juicy and interesting story. If somebody's listening out there, please turn this film into a series and get rid of the musical. Get rid of the musical numbers. I don't know how this film won an Oscar for one of the songs, because none of the songs were good. It sounded like a 5-year-old wrote them. It sounded like somebody was bored and just said, let's just, instead of saying the words, let's just sing them. Also, another thing about the musical numbers is that the songs sounded like they used Google Translate to translate English words into Spanish. Again, it takes you out of the film and you feel like you're watching a parody. This is why so many people on the internet were comparing it to Saturday Night Live sketch, because at some point it did feel like that. And it sucks because, again, the acting was so good and the concept has so much potential, but the freaking musical numbers were driving me freaking crazy. If I were to rate the film as a whole, I would say it's a 6 out of 10. And really, I want to say a 5 out of 10, but I'm being generous because there's potential. Now, what do you guys think of the film? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? Do you agree with my opinion of it? What do you think of everything I said in here? Please let me know in the comments. I would love to know what you guys think. And also, make sure you check out ColonBroom if you are struggling to use the bathroom. Maybe you just want a reset button like I do after making a lot of bad decisions and following some unhealthy habits. Like I said, they have a 65% off discount right now, and with my code you can get an additional 10% off, so that's 75% off your first ColonBroom order. So take advantage of that. You can use the code, or you can click the link in the description, which is going to take you directly to their website and apply the discount for you. Make sure you get it right now before you forget. And if you like this video, make sure you click the like button so it helps me rank in the algorithm. Also, if you're not subscribed already, make sure you subscribe, turn on my post notifications to be notified when I post again. And I will see you guys next week in my review of The Brutalist. If you haven't seen the movie yet, make sure you watch it. You have a week. See you guys next week. Bonjour.